go for it.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. My name is Pedro, and I would like to present I'm glad to present the first Latin America BISH Bash, an informal meeting that started in the Silicon Valley and passed through another capitals like Tokyo and London, and it is spreading overseas. We will discuss in a friendly way subjects related to the area of audio, acoustic, and speech. I would like to thank everyone for attending, and especially the four guests. The four guests has 20 minutes each to presentate, and with this presentation will be in English. And later we will have 3 chat rooms in English, Portuguese, and Spanish. Before commenting on closing of these remarks, I would like also to remind you, and especially our moderators, to strictly stick to our time schedule and not to let any overrun. To start off, we invite our host, Professor Bruno Masiero, to make a brief speech summarizing what BISH Bash is.
Sejam todos bem-vindos. Eu sou o Douglas e gostaria de apresentar o primeiro LatAm América BISH Bash. Ele é um encontro informal, iniciado no Vale do Silício, que está se espalhando pelo mundo. A ideia desse evento é discutir de forma amigável assuntos relacionados à área de áudio e acústica. Gostaria de agradecer todos aqui presentes, em especial aos 4 convidados que irão fazer 3 apresentações de 20 minutos cada. As apresentações serão feitas em inglês e, posteriormente, teremos 3 salas para conversas, nos idiomas inglês, espanhol e português. Para iniciar, estou convidando o professor Bruno Masiero a realizar um breve resumo sobre o BISH Bash.
Sean todos bienvenidos, soy Karen Rosero y me gustaría presentar el primer BISH Bash de América Latina. Este es un encuentro informal que comenzó en Silicon Valley y se está extendiendo por todo el mundo, para debatir de manera amigable temas relacionados con el área de audio y acústica. Agradecemos a todos los presentes y en especial a los 4 invitados que harán 3 presentaciones de 20 minutos cada una, mismas que serán en inglés. Posteriormente contaremos con 3 salas de conversa en inglés, portugués y español. Recordamos a nuestros expositores mantenerse dentro de los tiempos establecidos en la agenda. Para comenzar, invito al profesor Bruno Masiero a realizar un breve resumen sobre BISH Bash.
Okay, now after introductions in all 3 languages, let's start. I will share my screen. Even though it is an informal, we decided to use slides, and then we can move away from that later and just chat. But meanwhile, just to let you know what we are talking about, what is BISH Bash, or the Latin American BISH Bash. BISH Bash, as they just said, it is an informal network of people interested in sound, which started in the Silicon Valley, but it is slowly spreading around the world. And we are very happy to have the first meeting in this Latin America region. So the other ones were all local. There was a city, a capital city that was hosting. This one, we are trying to be a regional event, and therefore probably always virtual. Here are just some of the companies and research institutions that participated or hosted events so far on the BISH Bash in the Silicon Valley. But the whole point of having the BISH Bash is to learn what's going on, to get up-to-date information of the news, of the new developments in the area, and of course to have fun and meet new people and make new friends. As I said, the San Francisco BISH Bash was where it all started. They've started in 2013, and so far they've organized 23 physical meetups, and since the pandemics, another 3 virtual meetups. In 2020, our colleagues in Japan started organizing their Tokyo BISH Bash, and so far they've held 4 virtual meetups. In London, they started as well in 2020, and they've also organized 4 virtual meetups. And the Paris colleagues organized so far 1 physical meetup since 2020. And you guys are now present on our very first Latin American BISH Bash. So with that said, I will go ahead and introduce their first speaker. Pedro, please.
Thank you, Bruno. So our first guest is Tiago Tavares with the interesting that we will, with the title, How We Did Not Win the AI Song Contest. I invited Tiago for a speech right now, so thank you so much for being patient.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Pedro. Thanks, Bruno. Thanks to all the hosts. And yes, I'm going to talk about how we did not win the AI song contest. And yes, this is an interesting story. So so for all of you who don't know me, I teach at the University of Campinas since 2015, and I've been working with computer music since I think 2006 or something, when I was an undergrad. So, and recently, AI became part of pretty much all fields in engineering. Everything is getting close to AI somehow. And some years ago, people started using AI to compose music. And then the last year in 2020, there was the first AI song contest. And then this year, there was another. So what happened to our group? And when I say we, is because we did this as a group. Fernanda Chaves, who is here in this room, is part of the team. And Leonardo, who is the other part of the team, is probably having class right now. So we meet regularly for our regular research things, okay? And then at some point we learned about the AI song contest, and I came to all my students and I said, okay, so who wants to be part of this? And then they said, okay, let's do it. And then everything started. So the first thing we did was to do some research on how AI was being used to create new things. And essentially nowadays, the state of the art is to use GANs, the generative adversarial networks, to create things, to create new objects in particular domains. We have some websites right now that are like this person does not exist.com, that creates new faces of people who are realistic, yet they do not exist in reality. And then there's this whole list of gun-powered websites that create new information. And there's a tendency to use guns to generate new data in these fields. So the first thing that we did, and actually that was something that Fernanda did, was to code a gun and try to see what we can do with that. And okay, so the gun, so hold on, I'm going to share my screen here. So this is the website for the AI song contest. As you can see, we did not win the AI song contest because this guy is won. And then Fernanda came up with this code, which was basically getting some tutorials online and fitting this to our purpose. And then, okay, what do we want to create? Do we want to create, and this was the first question. What do you mean by compose music with AI? Okay, so there's this myth that we're going to press a button and the computer will become creative, but that's not actually going to happen because the computer can only compute things, and the creativity comes from other sources. But okay, so how do we want to use the guns? And so what we did here was that we got a lot of pictures from a book, from a rhythmic book, with like rhythmic cells, from small rhythmic excerpts. And then we wanted our system to generate new rhythms, photo to photo. And then what it created was something like, I cannot run this right now, but essentially, hold on, let me share this other screen here. 1 second. So our system generated lots of new rhythms, something like this. Okay, so this was, okay, we inserted many photos of the book, of the rhythms that we found in the book, and then the gun generated this. Some of these are really interesting, and some of these are barely readable. So, okay, so this is technically AI going on, but there's one thing that that we found, that we felt, is that this felt more like doing computer science than composing music. And then we had we wanted to feel like we were making music, as in we want to make music together, not as in making music as in we want to put some notes on a string and play it later. We want to feel that musicality. Okay, so and how do we do that? So then we came up with another idea. Instead of trying to do guns and trying to do what was the regular thing to do, the normal thing, we came up with another idea. We have some neural networks that are ready-made, they are pre-trained, and they recognize doodles. You know, doodles are things that when you play those Scrabble games, those drawing games. So you start drawing, and then the neural network knows what you are drawing. So you draw a cat, and it says cat, which is really interesting because when we think about the way we communicate, we often use images. Okay, so when we use a metaphor, for example, we are using an image. We are trying to use an image to convey some meaning. And then when we have a metaphor that's based on what a computer is, when a computer is interpreting a drawing, it's sort of trying to interpret a metaphor. Okay, so so what we did was, okay, we started reading poetry, and we read a poem by the Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa. And our proposal was, for each part of the poem, each one of us is going to draw what we understand from that after a lot of discussion. And then we are going to give our drawings to the neural network, and the neural network will try to find out what we drew. Okay, neural networks fail. The thing that the neural network tells us, they do not necessarily correspond to our intention, but they did make some sense. Let me show you. So this is it. Can you see it? Okay, so this is the original poem by Fernando Pessoa. This is my free translation. And these are the 3 drawings that we did. And here we have what the neural network thinks that we drew. Okay, so we did that to each part of the poem. Okay, so, and then we started building our lyrics from this. How did we build our lyrics? We used what the neural network gave us as keywords. and then we used these as keywords, and then we had the storyline from the original poem. We had some keywords, we made some lyrics, and then Leonardo, who's sadly not here, is an incredibly talented guitar player and singer. And I said, Leonardo, do that, make a melody from this. So he's really good with MPB, which is Brazilian popular music. And then he got his guitar and he sang, and we really liked it. And then we worked on that as a regular song making process. And then we got those rhythms that the gun gave us in the past here. So, and then it gave us some really interesting polyrhythms. So we used the polyrhythms for the percussion. So we did a lot of things using AI, and the result is this. Bruno, can I play it?
Probably can. Go ahead.
So hold on. There is a way for me to share my audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, share sound.
Na beira da estrada, ao redor da praia, morava uma moça que rastelava o chão. Ela plantava ervilhas e feijão de corda, e todos os invernos eu a ajudava. Quando eu ia embora, vinham as andorinhas, e depois chegavam as tartarugas marinhas, e a moça costurava essas indas e vindas inexoráveis numa colcha de retalhos. Ela tinha saudade de quando chovia na praia, e a saudade é o mal de quem se recorda de uma antiga estação em uma colcha de retalhos, e ficam ervilhas e feijão de corda. Infinito de esperança e realidade, o rastelo marca as linhas e deixa viva a ambiguidade do crescimento das gavinhas. Com seu destino entalhado no chão, rastela a linha dessa colcha de retalhos que vai costurar sozinha, que vai costurar sozinha, que vai costurar sozinha.
So, and this was our song, and now I want to share with you some. Hold on, because SoundCloud is okay. SoundCloud starts getting more and more songs. So, all right. So let me show you here. So, and then we send this to the contest, okay? And then the contest had two parts. It had a public vote in which we had. Okay, so in the public vote, okay, this is the first place in the public vote, and we are here. We are pretty okay in the public vote. We are in the 30%, in the first third of the contestants. And hold on. And but in the when the jury came, we didn't do so well. We actually fell to more or less the middle of all contestants. I highly recommend you all to listen to all of this. There are some really good pieces going on, and some other ones that are a bit weird, but I mean there are a lot of good things to hear in this contest. So I'm going to answer all the questions in the discussion later, okay? So, and then okay, so we didn't do so well in the contest, but actually this was a really big victory to us because we had a lot of fun doing it. We got really close because we were reading poetry and discussing deep things about their meaning. We were experimenting things that we wanted to try. So it was a really meaningful experience. And although we didn't win, I think not winning was just a funny way of referring to this really important part of our lives here at the university, because we did something that was really, really interesting and fun. And I think my time is going to get I'm going to be out of time, and I want to thank the organizers for all of this time and the opportunity to talk. And I will be in the room talking about all the details after. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tiago. Just for the curiosity for the English speakers, the lyrics of the sound is very creative. There's some phrase that doesn't make sense.
Yes,
but that's
actually there is a translate. If you go to our SoundCloud, there is a translation to English, so you can.
That's cool.
Let me.
So the second presentation today will be made by Bruno Masiero together with Fernanda Caldas. The theme is communications acústicos, and that's why and there is unusual application. So Bruno, please, if you can start the presentation.
Bruno, you need to allow me to share my screen.
Guys, just when I share, I can't see the comments anymore. So wait a minute, stop sharing. And security, you are allowed to share, Fernanda.
But that will stop you from sharing.
But you can, once I finish it, you can start, okay? As we I'm still getting the hangs of Zoom, even though we've been living on on this situation for so long now. Glad that we're soon gonna go back to live meetings. Anyways, first of all, thanks Douglas and Pedro for helping with the organization of this event, of this meeting, and for taking over so far. And obrigado, gracias, and thank you everyone that is here with us today. You're being part of a really special thing that we hope that will go on for a long time and will help us grow as a community here in Latin America. And to enter in the topic that I want to share with you, I believe that the terms acoustics and communication are two very popular words that you've heard so many times, but maybe the combination of them as the term communication acoustics is rather new and might be unheard of by many of you. So in the next few minutes, I will explain the meaning and the origin of the term communication acoustics. And with the help of Fernanda, we will discuss what for most of us are unusual applications in this field. To do so, I will start with a very personal perspective. And probably as most of you, as a teenager, I had to decide what I wanted to do when I grew up. So thinking about what am I going to do, I knew I wanted to combine my interests in music, in physics, and in math, and looking for a path that would combine that. I ended up having a degree in electrical engineering, and then went on for a PhD in the Institute of Technical Acoustics, which is now called the Institute for Hearing Technology and Acoustics at the RWTH Aachen University in Germany, where I spent 5 memorable years studying how we generate, process, and perceive sounds. And of course, as you can see here, also having a few beers along the way. Eventually, I grew up and I had to return back home, where I joined the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of Campinas, which is our host today for this event. At this university, I started a new field of study, which resulted in the Communication Acoustics Lab. With the support of FAPESP, which is our research foundation, I was able to equip the lab with several devices, such as a 64 microphone spherical array, a 16 speaker array made with Genelex, a PU sound intensity probe, the usual microphones, audio interfaces. We have computers with GPU for machine learning, and so on and so forth. And we are currently on the planning stage of an ITU conform listening room, which will house all this equipment and all the research. Okay, so enough of the advertisement. What about the big question, what is communication acoustics? And to that, I will resort to Professor Jens Blauert, who said that communication acoustics deals with the fundamentals of those areas of acoustics which are related to the modern communication and information sciences and technology. Good. We'll get to a bit further down the line on the details of that. But where does the field of communication acoustics stems from? How did it appear? How was it born? And to that, I will give a very brief historical overview, extracted from a paper from Jens Blauert as well, where he says that the development of the field started in the late 19th century. And at that point, it was there were two very distinct branches. At one side, we had the study of physical acoustics. And remembering that in 1877, Lord Rayleigh published his book on the theory of sound. And on the other side, we had the study on the perceptual attributes elicited by sounds. again, 1863 is when Hermann von Helmholtz published his work on the sensation of tones as a physiological basis for the theory of music. And according to Blauert, what drove the field further was the development of the vacuum tubes in the 1910s and the devices related to the vacuum tubes that unified physical acoustics and psychoacoustics into a new field of electroacoustics. This revolutionized the research on acoustics and made possible that mainly because it was now possible to have to measure sound with a higher fidelity. And moving on, still according to Blauert, when we add the after the 1960s, the electronic computers and therefore digital signal processing, that gave us the start of the field of communication acoustics. And since then, the field has only grown. In the last decade, we have the publication of the first textbooks on the subject. And there is also a very comprehensive online course available on the subject. What all this material contains? They will mainly talk about the fundamentals of physical acoustics, signal processing, speech and audio, and physiology of the hearing systems and psychoacoustics. So those are the bases that we need to master if you want to develop anything in the field of communication acoustics. And to be able to deal with that, we also need to know our math and our computing. Good. Once we have that mastered, we can apply this knowledge to develop new applications, such as telecommunications, so development of telephone, cell phones, also recording equipment. Nowadays very popular, to stream music, so on and so forth. We could think of public address systems, but not only to warn people or to sonorize the music event, but also in the generation of the music that is going to be played, of course, with electronic instruments such as guitars, synthesizers, virtual instruments, and so on. And very popular nowadays are the applications on virtual or augmented reality, which will be strongly based on acoustic simulation and oralization. But this is by no means an extensive list of applications. Those are, however, very usual applications that we hear about very often. And in this talk, we want to talk about some less usual applications. And therefore, I invite another member of our lab, Fernanda, to take over from now.
Hi, everyone. I'll be talking a little bit about some unusual applications. Let me share my screen here. Can you see? Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some unusual applications of communication acoustics. But first, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Fernanda Caldas. I did my graduation in electrical engineering at Unicamp, University of Campinas, where I also did my master's in sound source localization. Growing up as a dancer, I became obsessed with sounds, and also just as important as with the absence of sounds. That is what drove me to studying acoustics. And as scientists, we tend to research things we find interesting without any deep meaning or immediate applications. Like, for example, sound source identifications. We can, for example, iPhone has this tool where it identifies sounds and notifies the users. For example, it sends a notification if a dog is barking or if a doorbell is ringing, which if you have a dog, you know, those things usually come together. And someone from the outside of science or not on this field might think this is silly, right? We could just hear ourselves and identify sounds, right? But as listeners, we have no idea how much we rely on sounds to communicate until we understand the perspective of a deaf person. Our main form of communication is vocal. The majority of our alarms are sound-based. Not hearing a fire alarm, for example, might kill someone. When we think about acoustics engineering, the first thing and deafness, the first thing that comes to mind are hearing aids, which are incredible tool, but it also has its downside. It can be really expensive to purchase and maintain a hearing aid, which sometimes makes them not affordable. It is also not suitable for every deaf person. Every auditory system is unique, and not every auditory system is able to make hearing aid works, which it depends on how well the patient will respond. And also, I think this is the most important, personal preferences. Some deaf people are completely okay with deafness 24/7 and prefer not to use hearing aids, and I think we must respect that. I mean, can you blame them? Sounds are very chaotic. Imagine not listening for your entire life and all of a sudden you have to deal with constant noise you can't control. So how can you use audio processing to create a world without sounds? That seems like a contradiction, but just like it seems like a contradiction to use the same tools for deaf people on people with auditory hypersensitivity. How can we put together people that don't hear at all and people that hear a lot, which is very common for people on the autism spectrum, ADHD, and people with misophonia. And people highly sensitive to sounds can easily be overwhelmed and lose their ability to process sensory information. This affects socialization and concentration. For example, if you're in a noisy restaurant, it is very difficult to communicate. Classrooms, which can be really noisy, it is really difficult to focus. It can trigger stress and anxiety, and it can lead to meltdown and shutdowns on people. So we need tools that communicate without sounds. One very common and important is to convert speech to writing, which can generate, for example, automatic subtitles. CapCut is a great example of that and does a great job. You can download on your phone and it generates automatic subtitles and you can edit easily if there's any mistakes. I found out about CapCut on TikTok, which is a platform, social media where there's a really great group effort to make things accessible. So it's the social media where I see most people using subtitles, unlike Instagram and Twitter, which is less common. Because it's great because it fits the algorithm and makes it better. Subtitles are really important for people with hypersensitivity because the constant change in contents and audio can be really overwhelming. So if you're going to post a video on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or any other social media, you can use this program to generate automatic subtitles easily. The opposite is also extremely helpful. We are able to create virtual voices, artificial voices, for people that don't communicate orally. Stephen Hawking is probably the most iconic person that used artificial voice. Actually, his artificial voice became his actual voice and part of his identity. Also, for screen readers, for people with visual disabilities, it is very important also to perfect and emulate a natural human voice, so it doesn't sound too mechanic and becomes uncomfortable for people to hear. We're also able to teach music to deaf people, similar to what Tiago, who is here with us, hi Tiago, and Erivan did. In this work, it is used both visual tools, like associating each note to a color, and tactile tools, like assigning a note to a different vibration, each vibration with its own periods. This is great for listeners too, because it makes learning easier and we can use more than one sense to teach music. Also, another really important application is room acoustics that should be focused on accessibility, because it's more than just creating a comfortable space for everyone. For example, deaf people with hearing aids sometimes cannot hear as clear as we hear. So we must avoid noisy architecture. Similar thing happens to people with hypersensitivity to sound. Sensory overload is really common on the autism spectrum, and some devices are necessary, like noise canceling headphones, and other devices like noise canceling earplugs, like this one from the brand Flare. The Calmer, which is this device, is made out of silicone and filtrates noise frequencies without cutting out the sound. So this allows people to hear only important things. And before I finish, I'd like to leave this message. Disability is not about the person, it's about the context. I have myopia, which means I cannot see clear from afar, but I'm not visually disabled because I can wear glasses or contact lenses and do everything normally. But if it wasn't for that technology, I would have a huge disadvantage. I wouldn't be able to drive, to watch regular classes, to go to movies, to do a lot of basic activities due to my lack of vision in some contexts. So I think as scientists, we must use technology to bridge that gap between what we consider disability nowadays and daily activities that might be simple for some people, but it can be really hard for people that are not able to do the same things. And we have those tools. We just need to know where to apply and when to apply them. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.
And we'll be available to chat more on the breakout rooms later on.
So thank you, Fernanda. Thank you, Bruno, for this amazing presentation. For last but not least, we have our last guest, José Mannis, who will be talking about space resources in music, sound arts, communication, ecology, and architecture. So José Mannis, and are you here?
Yes, I will share my screen. Thank you so much. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay.
All good.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bruno and Tiago, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be with you this night. I'm proud of the very interesting projects around us here in ICAP. Greetings for all of you. It's necessary to have an international event to know interesting projects just around us. But I have worked, I have studied in Conservatoire de Paris in the class of musical composition in electronic music. And I worked at the Radio France and the Institut National de l'Audiovisuel, INA, and supported in producing the concerts of the Acousmonion. It's a concert in Radio France with the Groupe de Recherche Musicale, created by Pierre Schaeffer, with an orchestra of loudspeakers, around 16 loudspeakers each concert. And I have made produce this concert for many years. and musical performer in electronic music in France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. Well, I'm teaching in Unicamp, Institute of Arts, composition, acoustics, and counterpoint. And I have some research in the acoustic domain. I will talk with you about 2 ways of this work, and I hope is interesting for you. These two researches is related to the space. Yes, how the space is important to the acoustical quality, how the space is important for our apprehension of environment and sounds. First of all, I have a work in the domain of the modal analysis, analysis by finite elements method in boundary conditions. To now, how the response of the room, the behavior of the room about the excitation of the instruments of sound sources inside. In this research, we study the response of modal response, and we try to identify the behaviors not adequate for the quality of acoustics applied to music and music production. So in this, we can see in this slide, we have some irregularities in the response, and we try to identify the problems with the reason of this occurrence. So we work, I work in priority to sound studios of sound production and musical performance. And we make the model analysis to know where is occurring the maximums and minimum of pressure for corrections in the architectural projects. Now here we can see that we have a maximum of pressure in the sweet spot. It's not suitable because this is the more important place to control the sound quality. So we need to resolve this problem of this model in 60 Hertz here. Now we after make analysis by simulation, we make a score, an interface with score. Why we make an interface with score? Because we need to know the consequences, what this responsive mode affect the quality of the listening. Yes, and here we can see the pitch where the quality of sound is enhanced. So we can now that we have a gap here, we have another gap here, and this is a problem because I have an irregularity of response in the control room. So we make a big map of model response finally to have an homogeneous response in all the audible frequency domain in the studio. Another case interesting is this other study for a yoga group of performers. They sing mantras in their practice, and they want to know how the room of practice response for enhance the energy of the flow to make more intense energy in their works. So we study the places where it's possible to sing and the frequencies around the singing people, and for now where the resonance envelop the group. Yeah. So here we have another mapping to the response of the room, and we have here a big frequency common in the E, the frequency, the pitch E, mi in Portuguese, in the center of the room, and all the mantras, they can choose the mantras, the note of the mantras in consideration with the position of the singing, the group. Another work is in spatial sound. Is a research supported by CNPq in cooperation with Laboratório de Sinais, Multimídias e Telecomunicações, a COP, with Professor Luiz Wagner Biscainho. We have worked with the sound recording multi-channel to have a sound image in 316 degree. Yes, in continuous image. We have concluded a system with 6 microphones. Here is the system of reproduction. Here is the system of listening in the laboratory. Here in an application in natural space, we can recording nature for bioacoustics application for environmental control, and urban recordings, yes, to documentation, cinema, and musical practice space. We can record an orchestra, and after we can listen the recording with really the sensation to be in the room. Yes, it's a very little equipment. So it's only 6 microphones. It's not expensive. It's not expensive to production. It's not expensive to communication, to transmission, and it's very efficient in space, quality space reconstruction. Here we have the recording with many diameter of supported. Here we have three sets of microphones, and we have studied the consequence of the change of diameter of the sound recording. And we have here we can see the difference of phase interference. In function of the diameter, the phase interference have a frequency impact in change. So we have with the large diameter of captation, we have a sensation of space very comfortable. We have no impact of the high dynamics, and with the little diameter, we have it's more aggressive, more the high frequency response is more not agreeable. Yes, so it's more soft the response with the great diameters. So we have worked also in the simulation of space with this dispositif to cinema. We have worked in the Ugo Giorgetti long-metrage film, and we have installed the film. Is about anyone is in prison in the baggage of the car, all the film, and there is no visual content in the film, only the sound, and we have make a simulation of all the sounds inside and outside of the situation with this dispositif here. Another application in bioacoustics in the Amazon, yes, and this application is important because we can have an information about the displacement of the birds and the mammals in the forest. And until here, the recordings in bioacoustics are almost all in mono, and with this dispositif we have a space, an open space, and we can observe, we can hear the space after in laboratory, and to have information about the behavior of the birds and the mammals without our presence, and exactly a precision information about the displacement in this region. So we have many applications in sound arts, installations, sound installations, and some creative process in derivation with this dispositif. This is Rudolf Kaiser. He's a friend and a researcher in participating in our group. He adapted the system to a Chinese system, and it's very interesting, very interesting. And well, I thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you. I hope you have enjoyed these two programs research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, José, for this amazing presentation. So the idea now is separate each one in a break room to make the networking process.